Doom and Doom 2 are arguably the most influential games to have come out of the English-speaking world. Today, we, Arash Kardi and Sip Cavehouse, will discuss how these games can be considered to be the most influential video games from the English-speaking world. Before we start, we want to make some things clear though. When we say Doom, we also mean Doom 2, as these games are so similar and they were released within 1 year of each other. Doom's protagonist will also be named Doom Guy, as John Romero, one of the creators of the game, even said that Doom Guy is supposed to be the player. We are looking at Doom's single player and not really at its multiplayer, as both were highly influential, but there's not that much time.
Doom and Doom 2 are video games, and video games differ a lot from, say, board games. Board games often offer little to no positive reinforcement, but video games offer both positive and negative reinforcement consistently. The goal of every level in Doom is to get to the end of the level, and to do so, the player must face obstacles in the forms of enemies, locked doors and damaging floors. Negative reinforcement comes in the form of taking damage and dying. Both are represented directly to the player with health percentage counting down, the screen turning red, and Doom Guy's face getting progressively more bloodier. Positive reinforcement comes in the form of Doom Guy getting power-ups, picking up new weapons or revealing a secret. The screen can change color when Doom Guy picks up a certain power-up, and his facial expression can change as well. Positive reinforcement is also given at the end of the level. The player is given a percentage score in 3 categories: kills, items and secrets. The player is also given both their time and John Romero's time, which can indirectly push the player to complete the map even faster next time. Doom's aesthetic was formed by its time and era. Major film releases like Aliens and Evil Dead 2 were especially influential to Doom's development. The game was first going to be a licensed game, based off the Alien franchise, but id Software later chose for its own original setting to allow more creative freedom. The idea of demons from hell invading the base on Mars and eventually Earth came from a Dungeons & Dragons campaign that ended on a similar note. Heavy metal and grunge were major influences on Doom's aesthetic, style and music. Robert Bobby Prince, the composer for both games, was a lawyer and knew how much he could sample songs without infringing copyright law. Doom's aesthetic is undeniably influenced by heavy metal album covers, as Hell's landscapes look straight out of the album covers of Metallica, Black Sabbath or Slayer. It can also be reasonably assumed that Doom 2 Map 21 Nirvana is a reference to the grunge band of the same name. The map starts with the player getting a super shotgun, as a reference to the band's lead singer Kurt Cobain, who killed himself with a similar weapon.
Even though the two themes, fantasy and sci-fi, had been portrayed in movies and comics before, these two themes hadn't been used together in a video game. Doom is the first video game that brought these two themes together in its series of games. Most of the weapons that are being used throughout the Doom series weren't completely designed by id Software. Weapons such as the chainsaw and the double-barrel shotgun were inspired by the movie Evil Dead 2, which was confirmed by John Carmack in a tweet. For its time, the Evil Dead series was popular due to its grueling horror. Since the Doom franchise was meant to have a gory type aspect to it, the grueling horror of Evil Dead 2 merged well with the idea of Doom. The Evil Dead series wasn't the only inspiration for the weapons in Doom and Doom 2 though. Arguably, Doom's most iconic weapon, the BFG 9000, was actually inspired by a toy gun bought from Toys R Us. The toy gun was flipped to the side and then mirrored, which led to the in-game design of the BFG 9000.
It can be hard to imagine how video games would look if Doom hadn't been released. Before the release of Doom, first-person shooters were not well defined and obscure. Doom built off of Wolfenstein 3D, one of its earlier games, and with it solidified the genre. Maps had more dynamic elements with moving floors and ceilings and variable lighting being mapped to certain sections. Wolfenstein's selection of weapons was limited, but Doom solidified weapon archetypes with its own selection. The shotgun and the super shotgun are often imitated by games, but unlike Doom's version, they often lack range. It is likely that Doom and Doom 2 are the reason why shotguns are made so powerful in video games. The BFG 9000 is Doom's ultimate weapon, and the BFG started a trend in video games where energy weapons with sometimes limited ammunition are the most powerful weapons in the game. Although there are many examples, one of these is the displacer cannon from Half-Life Opposing Force. With Doom's release, other first-person shooters were called Doom clones. This trend started to die off when id Software's next FPS hit, Quake, was released, and the term is only used in a historical setting nowadays. Doom may also be the most modded video game ever, as developer tools were released in 1994 with the source code releasing in 1997. Mods, total conversions and map packs are made even to this day. It is said that Doom was the first game with a large modding scene, and this paved the way for modding to become mainstream among PC gamers. This can be seen in games like Half-Life and its sequel, but also in many games from the Grand Theft Auto series. One of the other impacts Doom had was with its distribution method. It is estimated that due to Doom's shareware release, it had more installations than Microsoft Windows 95 in late 95. This caused Bill Gates to consider buying id Software. He ultimately chose to promote Windows 95 as a gaming platform by developing a port of Doom named Doom 95 that ran on Microsoft's DirectX software. DirectX is still considered to be the standard API for PC gaming.
Doom is widely known as a violent shooter with not all too much story. For a long time, Doom's popularity experienced a downfall after the release of Doom 3, but due to the recent releases of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal games, the series has regained its level of popularity. One of the ways video game fans have depicted Doom recently is with a stark contrast to the Animal Crossing game series. Due to Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons overlapping release dates, fans created a large amount of content of the Doomslayer, the protagonist from the Doom reboot series, and Isabelle, a character from Animal Crossing. After this crossover made its explosive entrance on the internet, Doom's official Twitter account commented on this phenomenon. Furthermore, Elon Musk named his SpaceX rocket the BFR, Big Falcon Rocket, or the less PG version, Big Fucking Rocket, pick your poison, as a tribute to the BFG from the Doom series. Elon Musk confirmed this was true in an interview with GQ.
Doom was a controversial release as it depicted satanic imagery and, up until that point, unseen amounts of gore and ultraviolence in a video game. Some say this had an effect on kids and teenagers to the point that they would commit real-life violence. On April 20th, 1999, the United States had its deadliest school shooting for its time, at Columbine High School. 2 students under the names of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold killed 12 students and 1 teacher. Several more teachers and students were injured. It's been a known fact that the students were avid fans of Doom and that they considered other people as monsters from Doom. Harris's yearbook quote was, "I must not be sidetracked by my feelings of sympathy. So I will force myself to believe that everyone is just another monster from Doom." Klebold's yearbook quote was, "I find a similarity between people and Doom zombies." The weapons used in the shootings were also inspired by the Doom novels. Harris's shotgun was named Arlene. Klebold's Tech-9 resembled an AB-10 weapon. This was one of the leading causes for media connecting video games with real-world violence and psychotic tendencies. These claims are scientifically unproven.
In general, before Doom, you'd be hard-pressed to know the names and faces of developers. Most developers were unknown, with some exceptions, like Richard Garriott, the creator of the Ultima series. Given the success of Doom, it would almost be inevitable that the developers would get to be in the limelight. John Carmack, the lead programmer, is known to be one of the pioneers of the FPS, first-person shooter, genre, and is known for his coding expertise. John Romero is probably the most well-known member of id Software. He designed most levels in Knee Deep in the Dead, which is Doom's first episode. The episode was also part of Doom's shareware release, and so most people know him as the level designer behind Doom. Tom Hall was the creative director for Wolfenstein 3D and wrote the Doom Bible for Doom. During development, the Doom Bible was largely ignored, and this caused Hall to leave id Software to make his own game, Rise of the Triad: Dark War. Adrian Carmack, who is unrelated to John Carmack, was Doom's lead artist and made clay figures that were photographed and made into sprites to be used in the games. Adrian Carmack coined the term GIBS, a video game term which refers to an entity exploding into pieces after receiving heavy damage. Wolfenstein 3D is often credited with the first instance of jibbing, but Doom made it so jibbing was not exclusive to bosses, but to every enemy that was encountered. Jibbing continued to be used as a term in many gory type video games. Sandy Peterson was originally introduced to the team 10 weeks before Doom was completed. He was there to replace Tom Hall as a level designer. His depiction of hell is often credited as interesting, and he would have a bigger say in Quake's aesthetic and influence. These figures are well known in the gaming community nowadays, especially with avid fans of retro shooters, and without the team of Doom, we might not know figures like Warren Spector or Gabe Newell as well as we do now. All in all, we believe that the Doom games are the most influential games that came from the English-speaking world. Not only did they pave the way for the technical and gameplay innovations that are now standard, but also they directly made game development more accessible with its mod friendliness. Once again, it's hard to imagine just how influential these games are, but we hope that we've made this fact a little bit more clear.